Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Optimizing Accounts Payable helps BCG Okanagan impact lives. So my name is Selena and I'll be your host today. I'm one of the channel development managers here at Sage AP Automation, also known as Coordinated Accounts Payable by Beanworks. I know it is a mouthful. Now I work with clients and partners every single day to better understand their clients' workflows with the goal of minimizing the time that the clients spend in each step. Now we have a lot of great information to share with you guys today and a really great customer conversation that I think you're going to love. But before we get started, let me walk you through our agenda here real quick. So first, we'll talk about how to align your AP goals to your organization objectives. And then from there, we'll discuss the ways AP processes could be standing in the way and how automation can help overcome those challenges. Then I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Campbell from BAASS Business Solutions for a conversation with Patti Hait from the Boys and Girls Club Okanagan about their automation journey and how it's helping them save time and do more. But moving on now, let's take a quick look at how many manual AP processes could be standing in between your organization and how a more productive, secure, and cost-effective future could be just around the corner. Now, traditionally, accounts payable has been a paper-heavy process. Now, the use of paper invoices and checks have always been the standard, and even as automation grows in popularity, payments with paper checks still make up 40% of all transactions. Now, the problem is that paper is messy, and it carries a significant number of liabilities. Not only can physical documents be lost or damaged, but they can also be impossible to access if teams are working remotely. They also leave organizations vulnerable to fraud. And that's probably why 86% of CFOs surveyed view digitization of finance processes as keys to their company's success. Now, another big problem with manual paper-based AP is that physical documents get lost. Now, the Association for Intelligent Information Management states that 7.5% of documents get lost and another 3% are misfiled. That means that 1 in 10 documents are either completely inaccessible or will require an extensive amount of time to track down. So how much of that time is wasted? According to the Economic Times, employees waste as much as 25% of their time hunting down the information needed to do their job. And if hunting for records isn't time-consuming enough, relying on paper invoices, checks, and expense reports also creates tedious data entry, and which is frankly error-prone. Now, surveys have found that 76% of office workers spend up to 3 hours a day on data entry. And in AP, it's particularly easy for time spent on the process to balloon as employees have to enter the data into multiple systems. The prospect of data entry errors exacerbates the problem. Now let's take a detailed dive into each AP workflow to understand the AP pain points that automation targets. Now, the first AP workflow is purchase orders. With an organized PO process, the cycle of purchasing has more clarity. And Sage AP Automation allows you to set up budgetary controls by department, project, vendor, or set manager budgets to control spend. And the AP department can account for all the goods that the employees are ordering. It also allows you to keep tabs on approvals and cash flow, which speeds up approvals and gives you real-time updates on their status. This is a great way to identify any bottlenecks in the approval process, as we all have those people that ignore their approval notifications. Now, lastly, you can also reduce data entry by creating purchase requisitions directly in the software. Next up, with invoice automation, you can capture invoice line item details, description, unit cost, and quantities. In this way, it minimizes errors and reduces data entry over time by 80%. You can also automate approval channels and customize them based on your requirements. So that way, invoices can be routed based on a location, department, project, or vendor. We don't really come across approval workflows that we can't support because we can create any approval channels you'd like on the fields associated with each invoice. Now, lastly, searching for invoices also becomes super simple. You can find it in the system by typing in the vendor name, GL code, legal entity, or whatever you like. As a side note, all AP data is stored within Sage AP Automation for over 7 years, so that way you don't have to worry about AP audits or disorganized storage. Now, the third workflow will be payments. Now, unlike a manual payment process, automation flags duplicate entries for you so you can pay your vendors the right amount. You can also gain full visibility into your approvals process here. All upcoming payments are saved on a single dashboard. Now, all payments data automatically syncs with your Sage 300 system, and you have the option to pay vendors with whatever payment method they would prefer. The software also matches all payments to invoices automatically, making annual audit a quick exercise. Now, finally, employee expenses management. One of the top complaints for employees about expenses is the paperwork. Now, with automation, you solve that problem by giving the employer and employees mobile access. Employees can upload receipts and create expense reports from anywhere, either on their phone or on the computer. You save time with automatic GL coding by setting up customized expense receipt categories that map to your GL codes, so the coding is automatically completed in the background for your accounting team. It also speeds up approvals by giving both parties, the employer and the employees, online access. Employees can create reports online, they can route it to the approver. Once it's approved, the AP team can reimburse the employees electronically. So now we're going to move into the customer case study discussion that we have planned for you today, which Jeff Campbell from BAASS Business Solutions will be running with his customer Patti Hait from BCG Okanagan. So Jeff, why don't you start off with the introductions?
Great, thanks, Selena. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody across the country. My name is Jeff Campbell with BAASS Business Solutions, and I'm the Director of Strategic Sales. We've got a long-running relationship with the team at Quadient, even before it was when it was called Beanworks, a Sage APA solution. And we work very collaboratively with our customers across the country, as most of you may know if you're a BAASS customer. We'd like to go in and understand your business requirements from really a product agnostic standpoint, so that we can help you find the right solution, make the right recommendations, and make sure that your solutions aren't, so-called gold-plated, but they're the right solution at the right time to solve your problems, but also set you up in a situation for growth and to meet ever-changing business goals and objectives. So today we're going to be speaking with Patti Hait with the Boys and Girls Club of the Okanagan. We've had a great relationship working with Patti for north of 15 years, working with her team. A very dynamic organization that has grown over the years as they've done some consolidation. But Patti, I'll turn it over to you for your introduction, and then we'll get right into our case study.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. Yes, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Patti Hait, and I am the Director of Finance with the Okanagan Boys and Girls Club. I've been with the agency for 12 years now. It's hard to believe. And when I first joined, we were an agency of about $6 million, and this year we have grown to be an agency for $17.5 million. So we've had explosive growth over the last 10 years. And with that comes a lot of challenges in the finance world, in the finance department, just managing all of that additional work. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Patti. So BC, the Boys and Girls Club of the Okanagan serves a vast region, and with that creates a lot of challenges as you support the children and the families throughout the Okanagan. Can you describe the conditions and hurdles that you and your finance team went through to pursue the right AP automation solution?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably, like you mentioned, we do cover a vast region. The Okanagan Valley here in British Columbia is about 200 kilometers long, and we have locations right at the top, right down to the US border, right down to the bottom of the valley. And so some of the challenges that we faced was we had a good system in place. Like, we used a purchase order system, the old 3-part manual purchase orders. And then we had an approval authority matrix, an expenditure authority matrix. And so all of our program staff and all of the locations would do up POs and to initiate the purchase. And then what would happen is those had to be approved. And a lot of times the approvers, based on our expenditure authorities, may not have even been in the same city as the people wanting to do the purchasing. And so those manual POs were trucking their way around the Okanagan Valley through courier, and people having to drive them up to different places or go find the supervisors. So it was really cumbersome and really inefficient. A lot of time was spent on sort of that administration tasks of just getting the purchases done. And with that, we also had a lot of invoices that came into finance that we didn't know who had initiated the purchase. That paperwork had not yet made its way into our finance office. And so we have one accounts payable technician, and I want to say she was probably spending about 20 hours of her 35 hours chasing down and finding that paperwork to support the invoice that we received. So that was a huge challenge. So yeah, we wanted to find a system that would not only be helpful for finance, but also for the entire organization.
Okay, great. So there's a lot of manual processes there that your team has been struggling with. It's supporting you over 400 employees spread throughout the region. So when it came to finding the right solution, what are some of the specific features, functionality that just jumped out at you that were critical in finding the right APA solution?
Yeah, great question. So of course, it was really funny because it was our treasurer that kind of said, we were trying to find board members that would approve, come in and sign checks. And so he said, well, if it was electronic, I'd be more than happy, because he was actually, so those of us that don't know the Okanagan Valley, we're located in Kelowna, which is the central, and he was located about an hour north in Vernon. And so he said, if we could find an electronic system, he would be happy to sign off, to be an approver. And so I actually reached out to Jeff and I said, hey, Jeff, what you got out there? And he came back with a few, but at that time it was Beanworks, and so he recommended Beanworks to us, and so we went ahead and set up a demo. And the folks at Beanworks were they were so wonderful to work with. I mean, our first point of contact was Kevin, and he walked us through the Beanworks. And as I was sitting there, I was getting so excited because what I was seeing in this demo was our system digitized and becoming more efficient, and just answering all of those questions and solving all of those issues. And so I really became excited for Beanworks. I mean, right from the purchase order to the invoice, the expense module, I was like, I want that product. So that's really how that all came about, because like I said, it basically digitized our process.
That's great. Hey, so now that you've implemented Sage APA, what does your finance team look like? How many users? Who leads the team? How has that impacted the productivity of your team?
Oh, wow. So who uses the system? Let's start there. So we have about 90 staff in all across the valley that use the expense module, and most of them are using the mobile app for that. We have probably about 150 staff that are using the purchase order module. And then from all of that, like all of our approvals, the approvals come in electronically for all of the expenses and the purchase orders. So within finance ourselves, we have one accounts payable technician, and we have one purchasing technician, and then there's myself and the finance coordinator. Now, it's really our finance coordinator that has really taken the lead on the Beanworks and the implementation, but we like to call ourselves the Bean Dream Team. I love the name Beanworks. I'm always going to call it Beanworks. And so yeah, so we have a vast number of people using the system, and yeah, the rollout on it. I mean, we had, everybody was an eager adopter of the system. We've had staff attending, this is a funny story, we had a staff attending a meeting up in Vernon, and they had a it was a staff meeting, and Beanworks was on the agenda. And so she said, she came back and she said, I had to take a video of this because when Beanworks came up, everybody in the room was like, we love Beanworks. And so, you know, that was such a great affirmation back to the finance team that this is working, and it's really working for the entire agency. You know, people don't have to spend that time running around. It's all electronic. And so it's just been a tremendous game changer for our organization.
That's fantastic. And implementing change can be very difficult, challenging when you have a vast workforce of varying degrees of age as well. So as your team and your organization has saved time through elimination of manual processes, some of the most important things are what you can actually accomplish with that time you've saved. So first of all, I know that you're just starting off with the go live and the implementation, only been using it for a short period of time. But as you've implemented Sage APA, what have you accomplished, and what do you envision accomplishing with the time that you saved in the finance team and throughout the organization? And second, how does making these processes, simpler and faster, really support the organization in carrying out the mission and the greater purpose of the Okanagan Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah. I mean, we're all about people at Okanagan Boys and Girls Club, and supporting, our children, the youth, the families, just the entire, it varies the demographics of who we support. And so when we've, how do we, I would say it's not just, we went looking for a system that wasn't just about the finance department, it was about the agency. And so by implementing a system that's electronic and digitized and the approvals are all done, it allows our staff to spend more time in program rather than spending the time doing those administrative tasks. And so the vision for that is just to eliminate, not eliminate, but to really reduce the amount of time that they have to spend in an office doing this or running around, and so that they can spend the time with the kids. And then I guess for the finance team, as I mentioned before, Terry Lynn, who's our accounts payable tech, was spending probably close to 20 hours of her week chasing down paper from all across. And she literally already is saving time. She's probably saving right now about 2 days a week. And with that, the goal and the vision for Terry Lynn is that she will then be able to connect more with our vendors and create those vendor partnerships. We strongly believe in partnering, and vendors are very important to us, and in being able to do the work that we do. And so she's already saving time in like, she doesn't have to do the data entry, like when you use the purchase order and the coding is all done and the approvals that can get matched up to the invoice when you drop and drag that in. And then, you pick up all of those coding, and then it goes right through to be exported to Sage. And then it comes back and you create the payment, and it goes up for a payment approval. So, it's basically taking a system that probably took about, from start to finish, probably close to 2 weeks. It's cutting it down to about 3 days. It's phenomenal. It's a game changer.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I only look forward to you continuing to use Sage APA and reaping the benefits of the automation in that solution. So, hey, Patti, thank you so much for your time today, for your continued support of BAASS and Beanworks and Sage overall. We really do appreciate it and value your business and the partnership that we've built and continue to foster over the years past and years to come. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Selena. We'll have a quick presentation of Sage APA, and then we'll jump into some questions and answers at the end. And just as before we get to Selena, just want to make sure that everybody understands that BAASS has been around now. This is our 35th year in business, and we have the largest. We always provide the largest customer conference outside of Sage in North America. Normally, we hold these BAASS Connect conferences across the country, starting in Moncton or Halifax and all the way over to Victoria. But this year, because of our 35 years of business, we're having one single BAASS Connect conference located in our head office in Toronto. We're expecting to have between 500 and 600 partners, vendors, customers, and most important one is the customers at our event there in Toronto. So hopefully some of you, if you're back east, will be able to connect. You get a slide deck of this, and there's a link that will take you right to our BAASS Connect conference. Hopefully you'll be able to attend that. And with that, Selena, it's back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And happy 35 years. That's a huge milestone. I'm super excited for you guys to have your BAASS Connect in a couple of weeks. And to Patti, thank you so much for talking up BeanWorks. I love the Bean Dream Team. I also like to call it the Quad Squad, if you want to share that with your team as well. But yeah, always great to hear, that the system is helping you eliminate time, especially for your colleague, Terry Lynn. Definitely don't want them to be chasing any paper or doing the manual data entry. So now it's great to hear that, she can focus on those vendor relationships, which is more of the fun part of accounts payable. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now, like Jeff said, let's hop into a quick demo so everybody can see what this system looks like. So I just updated my screen here. What you're seeing is Sage APA. Now, before I jump into all the details of the system, I'm going to give a quick note to everybody. So we only have about 20 minutes left for our presentation today. So I'm going to be really making the focus of this demo on our invoice module. But if you are looking for a more in-depth demo, we will have our information at the very end of this presentation. So feel free to take out our emails so we can set up a more detailed conversation where we can go through each of the modules as well. With that, let's hop into the system. Now, before we jump into the invoice module, I'll quickly go over user access so everybody knows what's going on. So on the left, we have our 4 modules. So there's expenses, where employees, they can submit an unlimited number of receipts into our expense module. Our purchase order module, where you can either create POs or we can import them directly from Sage. Our invoice module, this is really the core of our system. I like to call this the Beyonce of Sage APA since everybody has access to it. And then lastly, there's payments, which is where we can help send payments out directly from our software. Now, over here at the very top, this is where the life of an invoice is going to be broken out. So they'll begin in either create or in progress, graduate down until it hits archived. In the center is the workspace. Then over here, we have the organizational structure. So with Sage APA, we are able to work with single entity or multi-entity environments. Now, in my example over here, I have a multi-entity environment. So at the very top, we have the parent company, and then each of those legal entities directly below. And then I have this further broken out by the different location and departments. So as you can see here, it kind of looks like a little tree, and you can be as creative as you'd like when you break out the organization, and our team will help assist with setting that up. Now, one thing to also mention with Sage APA, we do allow for unlimited user access. So that way you don't really have to worry about users' fees. Want to get as many people as you'd like in the system, we can help set that up. Now, when you have so many people, probably want to start thinking about some restrictions as well. So for each user, it's quite customizable in what they can see. So for example, let's say you have someone that works in legal. When they log in, they'll only see this bubble, but anybody in accounting and finance can see everything that's going on in the organization. Now, this same level of restriction will apply for the modules and the tabs. So let's say you have employees that are sending in expenses. They'll have access to the expense module. And then for approvers, all they really got to do is press a button. So when they come in here, they'll see the approvals tab. We can hide the other 4, so that way you only have to see what applies to you. So that pretty much covers it for the user access. Now let's dive into the invoice module. Now the first thing we're going to cover will be getting the invoices into Sage APA. Now there's 3 ways we can do this based on how they're received. So the first way is through email. Now, the long-term goal for using a system like Sage APA is to get as many documents electronically as possible. So that way it can completely skip this create step and automatically show up here in progress. Now to do this, we do connect with your email to pull them in. And then from there, it'll move into immediate processing where the computer will start to scrape the information off the invoices. Now, the second way is for paper copies. If you do get a paper copy that comes in, you can always use our mobile app to take a picture, which will also show up here in progress. And the third and final way will be through Create. So let's say, for example, you have a stack of paper invoices that come in. What you can do is hit upload, drag and drop that file, and then once you hit the upload button, you'll see an example that looks like this invoice on the screen. Now, in some cases, let's say maybe you have a big file of invoices. What you can always do is then split it in here and also rearrange it. Think of it like a PDF splitter. But in this example, it's super simple. I got one invoice. So once I upload it, I can hit Save Create, which will then push this into the in progress stage where it'll meet with all the other electronic copies. Now, once it's in the system, we want to start grabbing the information. So from here, the computer will read the invoice and it'll bring in all the header information. So the vendor, invoice number, dates, subtotals, totals, and taxes. Now, a lot of systems out there, that's going to be the bare minimum to catch. So on top of this, to complete the line item coding here, we do have two ways. So the first way is that there's a PO matched to the invoice. Over here on the left, you'll notice that the computer has automatically matched the PO with the invoice. Now, if you do want to pull a split view, you can do that to make a comparison. Now, when I click on PO adoption, this will allow me to copy the lines from the purchase order to the invoice because the coding's already done at that step. We don't want to do it again. So once I adopt those lines, it'll then populate all the information down here for me. Now, on the other hand, let's say you're not using a PO for this invoice. Totally happens. So what we can do is use our new feature called line item capture, where we use OCR to read the lines, populate the information down here. All you got to do is really allocate the account code. And once that's done, you can hit save or submit for approval. Now, one thing to keep in mind with our system, because we have that direct integration into Sage, all of your standard lists, accounts, vendors, they're always going to be pulled into our system. That way, it's going to be a reflection of what is already set up in your Sage. But from here, let's say we're looking at this looks good. We can submit this for approval. Now, in the settings, give you a quick view of how you can create the approval channels, which is basically rules we're telling the computer. That way they know who to send it to in the company. Now in here, if I pull up one, for example, at the very top, we can give this approval channel a name. So in this example, I'll do a more complicated approval channel by a vendor, dollar amount, and department. Over here, this is where you can enter your dollar threshold. So you can do either a minimum, maximum, or a range. Then all the way at the very bottom, this is where you'll find your lists pulled over from Sage. Now once I hit save, now there's a visual of what this approval channel is going to look like. This means any invoice coming in above 10K going to the HR department from, let's say, this vendor at the very top, will then be sent to my approvers determined over here. Now on the left, you'll have all the approvers in the company. And all you got to do is really select who you'd like, toggle them over. Now on the right side, everything is going to move in order. So this means the invoice is always going to go to Alex first, then to Ben, and then to Sally for final review. You can always move them around if you'd like. And also drop approvers into a group when there are times that approvers will have the same level of authorization. This means we'll send it to both of them. Whoever's faster can approve, and then it's on its way. And that's a quick walkthrough of how to build out the approval channels. And again, you can make them as simple or complex as you'd like, and there's no limit on how many you can create in here. Now, from the approver's perspective, they'll receive a daily email notification. It's going to tell them, hey, you got invoices in your queue. Now from there, like I mentioned in the webinar earlier, you can either go on your phone or the web browser version here to open this up, and then approve or reject from this screen. Now, when rejection happens, the box above lights up in red. This means you have to leave a comment. It is mandatory. So that way there is an audit trail. And when it goes back to the person reviewing and coding this invoice, they'll know what needs to be changed. That way this can be approved the next time. Now, let's say the approver is looking at this, and this looks awesome. We're going to give it a thumbs up, which will then push this into the export step. Now here in export, this is where you'll see all of your approved invoices. And now we want to get them back into Sage. So over here, hit Actions, Export Data. And this will send all the invoices back into Sage as an unposted batch. Now once that happens, all the information will then move into the Archive tab, which is a fancy name for your online filing cabinet. So in here, you can always hop into this tab to pull up historical information. Now it is completely searchable, so you can use the custom filters here on the left. You can build it out based on whatever criteria. So in this example, I have this built for ABC furniture. Or you can use global search at the very top. Think of this like Google. So let's say, today I want to see all my invoices from UPS. Just type that in and then the system will filter it for me here. Now the last thing to cover here will be audits. So let's say audit season's rolling around the corner. You might have year end and you have to pull up some sample invoices. What you can do is type in all the criteria for the sample and then download either a CSV or PDF report. So in this example, I'll generate the PDF report, show everybody what that looks like. Now here on the first page, you're always going to get a summary of the invoices. The grand total here at the very bottom. But if you do want to get into all the details, you can click on the hyperlinks to your left, which will then take you to the image of the invoice. There we go. With the header information, line items details, and the approval details as well. So in this way, let's say, you do have an audit. What you can do, a lot of teams do this, they'll add their auditors as read-only users so they can hop in here, pull their information. They don't have to bother the accounting team. They can pretty much do all the work on their end without changing the information here in Sage APA. So any further questions, please email sales@baass.com or ap.sales@quadient.com. I will be happy to set up a time to go through your workflow. Make sure it's always going to go well. But with that, let's hop into the Q&A portion with Jeff and Patti. They are still online with us, so we'll open it up for the next couple minutes and go through those questions together. All right, so I have one question popping up. So which payment methods are supported? So with the payment methods, we do support paper checks, wires, EFTs, and virtual credit card. All right, next question. So what kind of customer support is included? So we do have different tiers so you can select, really depending on how quickly you would want a response from our team. So right now it ranges from 2 hours to 16 hours. So I like to call this, I'm going to take this phrase from Patti and say that this is our Bean Dream Team. So you'll always have access to them if there are any questions. But yes, that's going to be our type of customer support here at Quadient AP.
Selena, I have a quick question for Patti, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Patti, can you describe what the Beanworks, the Quadient implementation process was like? What was how did the Beanworks team work with you? What was the impact, business disruption, the change management on your side?
Yeah, definitely. So I have to say that the team at Beanworks were phenomenal. And really, it's all about like the configuration of Beanworks. Probably took us, I would say, a good month to figure it out. I mean, in terms of the organizational units, and then understanding the approval channels. The power of in the approval channels is great. Like we have over 100 programs in our organization, and each program has a series of GL accounts that there's certain approval people for, positions for, as well as we have limits set by position. So our matrix is like 500 up to 1,000, up to 2,000, that sort of a thing. And so just getting all of those approval channels set up. And Peter and Abby have been amazing. Anytime we've had a question, they've been really quick to respond. And yeah, it's been great. So as I said, the configuration and then the actual implementation. What we did was we did a series of in-house trainings, but Beanworks, they have like what's called Beanworks University. And so there's some online like tutorial videos that are available that walk you through, as well as they've got like a resource library and you can just search up what you're looking for. So it's the resources available to get this set up and implemented are, to me, unparalleled. Like, it's been great. And so, yeah, and so the actual implementation, we kind of did our training about the last 2 weeks of March. And we did it we did one training for purchase orders and one training for expenses a couple of times, and we went live April 1st. So it wasn't, configuration will take you the longest, and then the implementation, like I said, it's very user friendly, and you can get that going pretty quick. One of the features that we love about it too is, so with all of these approvals, it has a built-in feature where you can do a vacation delegation. And so if an approver is going on vacation, they can go in and set up who will approve in their absence for the time period in which module. And so that's all taken care of too. So we don't have to worry about changing anything in the back end. The approvers can do it themselves, and that's a fantastic feature, especially when you have as many approvers as we do.
Yeah, that's perfect. That way they don't really have to worry about approvals. If they're going to be on the beaches of Hawaii sipping their margarita, their approvals are always going to be taken care of. It's definitely a feature that a lot of our clients really love as well. So thank you for sharing that, Patti. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So I think those are all the questions for today. So like I mentioned earlier, you guys will receive a recording. Now, one thing to note, BAASS Connect is coming up in a couple weeks, and we'll also be there. So looking forward to seeing some of you. Definitely drop by our booth, and I'm sure Jeff is going to be super excited to see everybody as well. So I do want to send a quick thank you to BAASS Business Solutions, Jeff Campbell, and Patti Hait from BCG Okanagan for joining us for this webinar today. Hope everybody has a great weekend coming up, and I hope it's sunny for where you are, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.